Toby. Come on, don't be. There we go. We'll get it right eventually. Don't mind me just puttering around. Ah, I think I like it there. Well, hello, Warwick Road Andy. Oh, how are you two gentlemen today? I'm kind of stuck in the house today. It's raining outside, and our city is tearing up our road, and so I'm kind of stuck in the house right now. Can't go outside and do anything because of the weather. Although we've needed the rain, so I can't complain. But this came in the mail yesterday. Another locomotive. But I will wait for a few more people to get here. Maybe what I should do is just there we go. That's a little better. I have no idea what dropped. Oh, that dropped. And I'll just go ahead and start running some trains, and people can. Whoops, gotta change that. Let's get a couple of trains running here, and hi Kieran, how are you? I'm still setting up. I didn't know if people would find out I was on and come in or not. Yeah, I'll come back to it in a few minutes when if a few more people come in, and then I'll kind of go through it. I don't know why you're on that one, but who should you be on? That guy. Oh, you so totally messed up. That's all right, Kieran. Life happens. You know, I expect those who show up. I don't ever expect people to be on the live streams. I'm just kind of housebound today. Joyce is in an online meeting for the next couple hours. So I thought, what the heck? I would go online and see if anybody was around. You are all over the place. What happened with you? We need 4. Now, who are we waiting for? Oh, we gotta get Alex going. Which way do I want Alex going? That sounds about right. Okay. Well, hello, John at Mystic Southern Railway. How are you guys? But I'm going to go ahead and let me see. I'm going to go ahead and maybe stop everything here. And I'm going to mess with your eyesight. Hello, Nisi. How are you? You fixed a loco today. Cool, Kieran. Yesterday and today. Let's see. So anyhow, I'll show this because I do want to start running it in. I have not run it in. I took it out of the box and got it on my central station because I always like to do that off camera. But yeah, this is my newest locomotive. So excuse me while I mess about here. I'll put the camera down a bit and maybe if I do it this way, things will cooperate a little better. Come on. Oh, the wire's being difficult with me. Come on, wire, work with me. Now you can focus. Or will you? There you go. All right. So this is my new locomotive. It is a BR. Well, I'll come around the front. You can see it. Once it focuses in. Any minute now. Any minute now. There we go. There we go. It is a class 143. You can always tell by the first 3 numbers on it. That's a class 143. This is from Pico. as opposed to Märklin. Märklin is releasing one like this later this year. I elected to get the Pico version simply because there's a couple of locomotives coming out later this year that I really couldn't afford to get all three at the same time. The Pico was less expensive, but this is a passenger locomotive. Many countries, they have, the locomotives can do both, but in Germany they really have locomotives that do one or the other. They have passenger locomotives and freight locomotives. So it is a little different. It's a little boxier compared to my other locomotives. And I'll be releasing a separate video, not a live stream, where I go through my update my trains. It's just standard Deutsche Bahn, what they call traffic red, Verkehrsrot, traffic red. Nothing really special to it, although the Pico does have a lot of detail to it. There is a lot of detail to it, so it's this is Pico's what they call expert range. Now, expert you would think is their top range. No, there is hobby, expert, and collector range. Pico has 3 levels: hobby, collector, hobby, expert, and collector. So expert is for obviously people serious about model train layouts. So there's more detail. They have slightly better quality builds, still a low plastic. Collectors for people that are going to buy that locomotive and put it on a shelf and rarely, if ever, run it. So this is a 143. It takes passenger cars. I've got some passenger cars over there waiting that I'll put on later, but he needs to run in for a bit. So I'm going to start running him in. He has a basic decoder in it, so there's no sounds or anything to show off. It just has operating lights. That's all it had. That's why it was so inexpensive. It was so cheap. Well, before I make you all sick, let me change screens here. Yeah, it was... for a German locomotive, for a German of quality, it was 100 and what did I pay? Well, if you add shipping, I paid $175 for it, but that's $30 shipping, so it was about $145 for what's a Pico quality. Is it as good as a Märklin? It's as good as the Märklin basic ones. Now, Märklin does not officially delineate their locomotives into low quality, middle quality, high quality, although technically they do. They just don't officially give it names. I think Hornby does this. Those of you in the UK, right? Hornby does. There's the railway and the railroad lines. I think Bachmann has it. Märklin does, so let me get the trains back running. I'm going to get this guy fired up. But I am going to buy, and I want to mark the time, it's 12:55, so he needs to go about 20 to 30 minutes each direction. So in about half an hour, I want to change directions on him. But I'm going to run him in, so he's not pulling any cars, but I'm going to give him the full... But it's a regional thing locomotive. But yeah, it is... let me go to... But there you go. It is the Pico Expert line. And again, Pico has hobby, which is mostly plastic, bodies and shells. Either no decoder, so it'd be an analog train, or a basic decoder like this one has. And just cheaper quality. Then they have the Expert, which is their quality. And the experts can have basic chips like this one has, or a full-blown high-end chip in it, which would be the difference in price. That's why this was $145 instead of $245, because they didn't put their quality chip in it. But I can get their quality chip for cheaper. And then they have the collector level, which is just there's not a lot of them out there, but they will release certain models in the collector level, which can run on a layout, but it is like all metal and it's their highest quality construction. So there we go. Miraklin has levels, but it's more interest, or maybe not even interest based, age based. They have Miraklin My World, which I don't even like to count because Miraklin My World is just cheap, battery operated plastic trains on plastic track. But it's for kids 3 to 5 years old. They're you can beat them up and they're battery operated. They do have remote control, so a kid can learn to use a remote control, but it's battery operated with a Bluetooth controller. And it's meant for 3 and 4 year olds. They beat the crap out of, bang them up. I put a couple of those in my classroom and my students love them. Then there is the Miraklin Startup. Startup is usually cheaper locomotives and cars. Locomotives maybe all plastic or plastic and metal. Usually if it's a locomotive, it'll be a mixture of plastic and metal. Good quality, but they don't put a lot of functions into it. They don't put a lot of hardcore detail work into the locomotive. And it's called Startup, and it's aimed at age 8 to above, but they're usually designed as startup kits, so that whether you're 50 years old or 8 years old and you want to get into real model trains, it's not going to bankrupt you, but you usually get a oval of track or a little pattern of track, a controller, the Miraklin's mobile station, this guy right here, the Miraklin mobile station, and it's quick and functional. But some startups can get expensive. They have 2 trains of high quality, and they could go up to 700 to 1,000 American dollars, which would be about 600 to 850 pounds. They can get really expensive because even though they're startup, it's a startup for somebody who really knows what they're going to get into. And then they have their base lines. But even Miraklin's base lines have levels. Like I have a couple of Miraklin locomotives that have a high-end chip in them, 20 to 32 functions, all kinds of lights and sounds, but the locomotive was $200 to $225 compared to their $400 and $500 locomotives. Now, steam locomotives are always more expensive, I've learned. Steam locomotives are very, very, are just in general, are much more expensive by Miraklin. Steam locomotives can go from $300 up to $1,000 in HO scale, depending on what the locomotive is and what all it can do. Hey, Bear Lane Steven, how are you? And so Miraklin can be a little more interesting, but Miraklin really just tries to put out quality, and the difference between their lower price point ones, which again, they don't have level names, it's just Miraklin. Once you get past Startup, it's just Miraklin, whether it's a $200 locomotive or a $500 locomotive. A lot of it is just how much detail and little extra bits and bobs they put in. Did they make everything separately attached, or is it molded in, whether it's molded metal or molded plastic? Obviously, diesel doesn't have as much work to put in as even an electric locomotive. So this 143 is a big boxy guy. And when Joyce and I were in Germany in 2019, we rode a passenger train that was pulled by a 143. So I can justify getting it. Oh, that's awesome, Stephen. That's awesome. The Ribblehead Viaduct. I'll have to mark that down. Yeah, Joyce and I have started plotting out our trip to the UK for next year. Normally I would wait until fall, but I've had nothing to do the last couple of days. And so we started talking about, because we're so used to traveling in Germany. 15, 16 trips to Germany, or how many ever it's been. About 15 or 16 sounds right. We are so used to Germany. And because I speak fluent German, it's simply pick where we want to go and we know how to work everything. We know what to expect when we're in Germany. We know how the train system works. We know how it all does its thing. So, I am not happy with there. I think that's where I want it. Yeah. Okay. So we're so used to Germany, and at the risk of offending people, it's easy to travel to Germany. It's probably easier than just about any other country I've gone to. Now, I haven't been to many, but Austria, Germany, it's all the same in terms of how easy it is to travel. We haven't traveled through France. We've been to a couple of places in France on our trips to Germany, and we used the German rail system to get there and back. But looking at the UK, we realize the UK is going to be different. And so we've started planning earlier. We started mapping out this week places we would like to see that specifically we're there, let's go. For example, we both said we really didn't need to go see Stonehenge. We're really, meh. I was like, do you want to go see Stonehenge? She's like, no, not really. Like everybody's going to say, you went to England and you didn't go to Stonehenge? And we're just like, meh. It's not on our big bucket list. It's sort of like when we went to see Mount Rushmore. We looked at the pictures of Mount Rushmore, and then when we got there, we went, oh, yeah, it looks just like the pictures. It wasn't that impressive. Plus, we also kind of side with the Native Americans over there that, it was their holy land, and we went in and trashed it and put up pictures of our presidents on one of their most sacred places. But we were sort of, meh. So neither one of us. So that's just it, Kieran. York is going to be a center for us. We are going to spend several days in York because a lot of things we want to do are within short trips from York. So that's one of the places we both agreed. We watched a video on York, and it's a pretty enough town that we want to see it and go through it. And then there's all kinds of other little historical things near it that we can go see. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to do London, because London is expensive. And we already know we're not, and again, people are going, you went to England and you only spent a couple of days in London. There's not a lot in London we specifically want to see. Hey, Andy Ambrose, how are you? Aha! Well, thank you, Stephen. We will definitely bear that in mind. Because although Joyce and I do travel, we travel on a budget. And in Germany, it's very easy for us to travel cheaply. It's very easy for us to travel cheaply. That's why we're doing the UK now, because we know the UK is going to be more expensive. We know the UK is going to be more expensive, but I'll still be working and getting my full working paychecks when we go next summer, as opposed to when I retire, where money becomes tighter again. So we know we're gonna hang around York for a bit, because there's a whole bunch of things that are all within an hour of York that we'd either rent a car, but that's one of the things we got to figure out, because in Germany the rail system is cheap. It's cheaper than renting a car. It's cheaper than almost any other way you could get around. And you can get into the cities, and you can buy a ticket for your train. And in Germany, they have what they call state tickets, which is you can use any of the non-high-speed trains, but it also covers all the buses, all the trains, all the subways, all the trams in that state. Or you can buy their federal pass called the Quers durch Land ticket, which covers all the states and everything but high-speed trains. High-speed trains will always be separate. You have to pay for those separate. Well, hi, Chris. How are you? Ba-bing. All right, Stefan. Yeah, Joyce and I will definitely take advantage of that, because we have places we want to go, but also we're trying to work around like London, because we do have a budget, despite the appearances. We're working class people, but we know how to travel cheaply. And in Germany, we're so used to Germany, it's so easy. We live in Germany on counting trains, $50 a day or less. That's food, shelter, and the cost of trains. We can usually do it $50 to $60 or less. Now, sometimes we splurge. Some places we know it's going to be more expensive. For example, when we go down to the Alps, we know we're going to spend $70 a night, $60 to $70 a night, just on lodging. But, so we're looking at it. We know we're going to stay in the Edinburgh area for a few days, because we want to go to Edinburgh. And we might even wave hi to Chris while we're there. Edinburgh. But we also want to go over to Stirling Castle and the Battle of Stirling Bridge site. We haven't decided whether we want to just go the rest of the way over to Glasgow or not. We haven't made that decision yet. We're debating whether we want to go all the way up to Inverness and see Loch Ness. So, and we're trying to also, where are places we can meet. Now, for example, it's Dawlish. Dawlish in southwestern England. One of the things I wanted to do is, there's a couple of people I've known online for a couple of years that are down in the Dawlish area, but we want to ride that, that's the train that goes along the coast with the seawall, and when the tide comes in, it splashes over the wall and can even splash over the train. Joyce and I really want to do that. We think it's a beautiful train ride, but there's nothing else down there we're looking at doing. So it's like, do we just go down, ride the Dawlish train, and spend 2 days down there, and then go? Because we do want to go. We're going to go up to Wales, and we're going to be Conway and Carnarvon. Conway and Carnarvon. We want to see both those two castles, and definitely tour the town of Carnarvon. But definitely we're going to be in York. So a lot of you that live in that region, maybe we can set up a day and maybe we could all go through the train museum together. All of you that want to meet us, maybe we could set up a time and we could all meet at York and go through the York Railway Museum together. I did not load my trip stuff on this. I probably should have, but where I've got the map, because Joyce and I just look at a map and we say, these are things we already knew we wanted to see, and then we start watching his videos, because I kind of want to go to, I kind of want to see the Battle of Hastings, and I wanted to go to Kent, and they're kind of within distance of each other, but I don't want to go to the actual, well, not the actual, what the British Historical Society says is the battlefield of Hastings. I want to go over to the town. It's like Crowshurst or something like that, up from the city of Hastings. I want to go to Crowshurst because that's where the battle actually took place. There's enough archaeological evidence and other things that there's no way the battle took place where the British Historical Society says it took place. Plus, they charge you money. The area in Crowshurst or whatever it is free. But it's clear based on the descriptions of the battlefield from contemporaries. And also, one of the things a lot of people, even in the UK, don't know is that the topography in southeastern England is vastly different than it was 1,000 years ago. That there's a large area there that is now land that was underwater 1,000 years ago. And like Pevensey or whatever it's called was on the coast as a castle. Now it's inland a bit, but it originally was a castle overlooking a coastal area. And there's a floodplain down there that has, the tides are changed or whatever, and it's now higher up in land. Now see, Andy, when you guys start throwing those names out, I have no idea. And people are going to throw, as I talked about, people are going to throw out 10,000 ideas. And Joyce and I will probably, kind of jot them down. And then we're going to feel bad if we say, nah. So right now, we know there's some things we want to do in London, but we don't want to stay necessarily in London. Although we found a couple of, we do Airbnb a lot. And we have found some affordable things in parts of London. But getting there, that's the issue. The trains are so much more expensive in England. We just watched a video, and they said England is the second most expensive train system, dollar to mile, if that makes sense to you, pound to mile, but per mile cost, England is the second most expensive rail system, they said, either in Europe or in the world. And that scared us because Joyce and I are train travelers. Well, we know the battle's over and we won't see the battle. I am a history buff, especially a military history buff. And whenever I get a chance to go see famous battlefields in history, and where I already know what happened, where I can go, and even with the farms and that, and can visualize. I can visualize, okay, that's where Harold had his shield wall. Here's where the Normans, because the Battle of Hastings is one of the most important battles in the history of the world, because linguistically, politically, so many things changed with that battle. Or the potentialities changed in that battle. For example, the Battle of Stalingrad. Had the Germans eventually won the Battle of Stalingrad, it would have changed the outcome of the war a bit. The war would have gone, but Germany would have eventually lost. The Russians would not have suddenly surrendered. And they would have eventually done what they did, which was bleed the Germans dry while we invaded the, Normandy invasion and bled them from the west. The war would have probably been significantly longer, a year to 2 years longer, but Germany would have eventually have lost. The horrific numbers, the Holocaust and everything would have been even more mind-boggling, staggering. But as big a famous battle as Stalingrad is, it's not as world-changing as the Battle of Hastings, which linguistically, historically, politically, totally changed the direction of world history. You know, the effects on the English language. Me with my master's degree in the English language and English literature. It was a drastic effect on English. English is what it is because of that French influence from the Normans, who themselves were Germanic, who brought a Germanic influence into the French language that then came over to the UK. Yeah, and that's another one. Bosworth, I wouldn't mind seeing, but it's not as big a deal. I do want to go see Stamford Bridge, which is up near, it's not too far from, where did I just say? York. Stamford Bridge is not far from York. York Castle. We want to go see Warwick Castle because that's got some family history to it, along with other events, historical events. Now see, Andy, that's a good idea. Thank you for that. Chris, you never miss anything important on my... you know, so it's like London. In London, Joyce and I want to do basically 3 things in London. We've already decided. We're just going to take the most touristy bus trip and see all the main sites of London. Hey, there's Buckingham Palace. There's the Parliament building in Big Ben. You know, the Old Bailey. We do want to do a tour of the Tower of London, and then we want to do... we want to go over to Abbey Road Studios and see where the Beatles, you know, check out the Beatles bit they have. We know it's pure tourist, sort of. We know it's totally aimed at tourists, that it's not going to be anything impressive, but I'm a Beatle freak, so we definitely want to go see the Abbey Road Studios and walk across the infamous crosswalk from Abbey Road album. So we definitely have that, and then we want to do a Jack the Ripper tour. It's a huge interest of mine, and Joyce actually says, yeah, she'd be interested in that. So we don't have a lot we got to do. We don't want to go to Buckingham Palace and go through Buckingham Palace and all that. Joyce is not a big museum fan when it comes to art museums. I am. But then which art museum do you go to? You know, when every royal palace in and of itself is an art museum. You know, it's, you know, in Paris you go to the Louvre and you see all these world famous pieces of art. In Berlin there's a couple museums you go to, like the Neues Galerie and the Altes Galerie, and you get to see different, you know, you get to see a lot of the most famous artwork in the world. In Dresden, it's the Zwinger and the Grüne Gewölbe. In Munich, it's the Pinakothek. UK, in London alone, there's so many major art museums. The Royal Art Museum, whatever. So London would be something like where we'd be like 3 days at most. And do we stay in someplace like Kent, that's about an hour outside of London, and try to take a train? Because that's what we do in Germany. In Germany, we would, if it's a really big city like Berlin, we wouldn't try to stay in Berlin. We would stay in a small town like Potsdam or something outside of Berlin, where it's a very cheap train ride and takes about an hour to get into the heart of the city. And then we just walk. You know, Joyce and I don't even ride the buses in Berlin. We just walk, although we do have the rail pass for Berlin, which cost us like $10 a day for the two of us, and then we can ride all the subways, buses, and slow trains. It allows us to ride all that. Hey, Richard Brown, how are you? Um, I was looking at could we go up to what is it, Glenfinnog? I'll mispronounce that. The Glenfinnog or Glenfinnan, the big viaduct rail, up there in central Scotland. As you get into the Highlands there. Well, we thank you for that invitation, and we may take you up. I'm not making any promises. Within a few weeks, we will probably talk, maybe even do a non-trained live feed where I try to talk to UK people and say, here's what we're planning. What can you tell us? What can you suggest? Stephen Price apparently works as a travel advisor guide, so he sounds like somebody we're going to be hitting up. Hi, Tim. Yeah, Tim, I was at the doctor's office. I missed your live stream. I would have loved to have been there just to say hi, but thank you for coming by and say hi. Glenfinnan. Okay, Glenfinnan. But, if there was something we could do, and I know there's Swansea in southern Wales, something that could justify us riding that Dawlish, that section of train, Dawlish, and then maybe, go from London over to Swansea for a couple of days, up to northern Wales, where we're going to spend 2 or 3 days, Conway and Carnarvon Castle, and then over to Liverpool, and then up to Scotland, and then back down to York, and then from York back to London to leave. Although we have not decided whether London is where we're going to fly into. If we could fly a cheaper flight into Liverpool, or who else is a really big international airport in the UK? Because from where I live, I'd fly out of, Windsor, Canada, because it's $1,000 cheaper. Just to tell you what a ripoff the American airline system is, Joyce and I have started flying out of Canada for our trips because we save $1,000 between the two of us. We go the same places, but it's $1,000 by plane cheaper. Well, round trip, there and back. So Manchester and Birmingham. So we will look into that and see what's cheaper. But we always try to make it where we kind of go in a circle, so we always come back to the town we're going to leave from. Like when we go to Germany, we fly into Frankfurt, and then we go north and visit our friends in Delmenhorst. We go up to Hamburg to the Miniature Wonderland. We always go to Miniature Wonderland. We visit our friends in Delmenhorst and Bremen, then up to Miniature Wonderland. Then we take the long train and go south, and then we bounce around the south of Germany, and then come back over to Frankfurt to go home again. So we just got to look at what's the cheapest way to get around, whether we're going to need to rent a car, and I've got to figure out, I got to learn to drive on the opposite side of the car, on the opposite side of the road. That would be a trick. Or if there was some kind of, because we can mix it up too, we might just pay for the long trip. But we were looking at like Dover and maybe going over to Calais for a day. Why not? Dover's right there, going across to Calais. Oh no, 180 euros. Just to take a hour-long ferry. No. Hey Lee, how are you? Richard, we are trying to decide if we can fit Ireland into the trip now. We've got to see if there's an inexpensive way, because wherever we fly into, that's where we have to fly out of. Because we want to go up to Donegal and see Mark McDade's museum up there, just north of, you got Northern Ireland and then Main Ireland, but go up to Donegal. Go to Belfast and go up to Donegal, because our attitude is it may be the only time we're over on those islands we want to fit in. But again, we got to see what we can fit in. And if trains are going to be as expensive as they're starting to look, then we have to cut some things we wanted to do out. So what we like to do is kind of fly into the middle and then circle around and come back. That's always, for us, the best way to do it. So that basically the day before we're to take off, we're back in the town, we're ready to go to the airport, whether it's take a taxi, take a subway. In fact, when we're in Germany, we stay at a hotel, really low budget hotel next to the airport. So all we got to do is go down to the basement of the hotel and hop on the shuttle that takes us straight into the airport. So all kinds of ideas. I don't have any other forum to talk to people about, so I'll probably just do it as a live feed and maybe not even run trains. By the way, where is he? It has been half an hour. It is time to turn the little fellow around. Where are you, guys? Oh. He'll be coming around the mountain when he comes. And if you are new here, I can show it to you again. I'll blind you, but I'll stop him here in front of the DB 4K cam. Come on, little fella. Little fella, he's probably my biggest locomotive. Okay, I'm just stopping my trains for a second. And let's go to... All right, so... So yeah, that's my new locomotive. What's the... Because this guy's going to get in the way real quick. Yes, I can do this. It's in the direction he's going. But there you go. So that is my new locomotive. It is a 143, a BR 143, Class 143, which they're an older locomotive, but they're being used more and more. They're used for regional traffic, so they would pull any of the Deutsche Bahn red traffic cars. They basically are remodeling them and bring them back out. So this is a remodel of the old 143. So it's I mean, in real life, the 143s have been remodeled to look like this. I mean, basically, I don't find it a super attractive locomotive. I don't know what locomotive is really attractive in the diesel or electric range. But there's nothing special about this. It's a Pico, not a Märklin, but it is obviously AC3 rail. Obviously, it's electric. You can see it's got the pantographs here. It was 125 euros, so about 145 American dollars, plus $30 shipping. And it doesn't do anything except lights right now, but I can get the higher end chip because they didn't make this with the higher end chip. And the Märklin version comes out in November or December, which is much more expensive. But I just didn't want to get... There's too many trains coming out in December, and I didn't want to get it. So that is the new guy, but I need to change his direction now. I'll let everybody pass. But on this camera, his red lights show up white, but they are red. They are red. But I just got done running them in half an hour one way, so now I got to run them half an hour the other way. And then he can start pulling cars. Hello, JP Ricard. Is that the same Jean Ricard? And not to tell you, not at the rhomboid table. By the way, that's rhomboid table. So we will definitely look, because we fly out of Windsor, Canada. We already have the money set aside. They've still got our airline fare from our trip to Germany in 2020, last year, that got canceled. And we're not going to Germany this year. So they've got like $2,300 of ours on a gift certificate, basically. All right, Stephen Price, we will talk to you later. Thank you for letting us know. And yeah, Joyce and I will be contacting you. So our original thought, our simplistic thought was there are 4 countries in that area. I mean, it's technically not Great Britain. Great Britain is just Scotland, Wales, and England and Northern Ireland. And you've got, I mean, the British Isles, but then the UK or Ireland. But we thought a week in Ireland, a week in Scotland, a week in Wales, and a week in England. But there's so much more in England we want to do that it takes time off the other ones. Now, we don't want to fly out of Chicago. We would fly out of Windsor. That's the only place we fly out of. And so if Windsor, Canada doesn't do to Ireland, then we would have to do something else, because it would be hard for us to get to Chicago and back. We're 4.5 hours away, about 4.5 hours, 5 hours away from O'Hare International, but it is so much more expensive to fly out of the United States. And Windsor Airport, which then goes through Toronto, is so much cheaper, and it's only an hour away from us. Detroit Airport is about 55 minutes away, and Windsor is about 70 minutes away. And it is so much cheaper. Literally, our trip in 2020 would have cost $3,200 to fly out of Detroit. $3,200. It was $2,200 out of Windsor. Our 2019 trip was $3,300 out of Detroit, $2,400 out of Windsor. But that also included, we got to pick our own seats on all the flights. Whereas that would have added another $500-$600 in cost to the American Delta Airlines. So flying with Air Canada out of Windsor, even if it means one extra stop, which Windsor goes to Toronto and then we fly out of Toronto, it's still $1,000 cheaper than flying out of Detroit, or about $1,200-$1,300 from flying out of Chicago. Plus, we'd have to pay to park our car and leave it in Chicago. So Windsor to London would be very cheap. And again, those are prices for this year. Prices I don't know if prices are really low as they're trying to get people back in, or if they're, because we can't go this year. If all of a sudden Germany opened up tomorrow and the border between the United States and Canada opened up where we could go to, we still couldn't afford to go now. Even though we've got the airfare already covered, we just spent all our travel money on a new plumbing thing that's going to be done next week and the insulation. We just spent all our travel money, so we can't travel this year if we wanted to. We just spent so it's next June, and of course June is a more expensive time to travel. But that's the only time we can travel because it's the only time we have time off work. Now, I'll be retired next June, but Joyce still works. Joyce has to work 10 more years, or she's going to work 10 more years. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it, but it's weird because Germany, of course, is a country where they don't speak our language. Fortunately, I speak that language. The UK, we speak basically the same language, but obviously regional dialects and accents and everything go out the window. But it's such a foreign country to us. Germany's not foreign to us. It's easy to travel around Germany. We know how the rail system works. We know. And when we go to Switzerland and Austria, it's the same way. It's set up the same way. But the UK, because of your sectorization, what do you call it? Privatization, where you have all these different private train lines. In Germany, you have private trains, but the federal government mandates everything. And again, the UK, this information we were getting is like the second most expensive per mile railway system in Europe or in the world. I forget which one it was. That's a little scary because we prefer to travel by trains. Because in Germany it's so cheap and easy. You have to send one of the X's back to the USA. Well, and the problem is, the minute you talk about privatization or sectorization or federalization, it becomes political. It becomes a huge political thing. I don't know why federally controlled railways work well in Germany and don't work well in the UK. I am old enough to remember all the stand-up comedians, but also all the news, all the strikes in the UK, all the problems, and everybody just complaining about the way the federal government ran the trains and the mail and everything in the UK. Yes, I did. So yes, so I'm going to look, Joyce and I are going to look at the Brit Rail Pass, because it's not only just going from point A to point B, but in Germany, we take the main trains to whatever city we want to be at, but then there are smaller local trams and regional rail that's all covered in one ticket that get you over to the places we want to see. You know, as we're looking at some of the places we want to go, we're like, how are we going to get from here to here? And, you know, one of these tourist shows we're watching is like, it's only $30 a person to go from here to here. Well, that's $30 a day per person to go see one thing. We're in Germany. It's $40 for the two of us. And we can use all buses and all trains, except for the high-speed trains, in that region for 27 hours. No, check that, not 27, 21 hours. Basically from 9 o'clock in the morning to 6 a.m. the next day. Yeah, I saw that, Richard. I was just catching that England has enacted, or the UK has enacted a new law that they're going to change the train system somehow. So yeah, a little nervous, which may change everything when we get there. But right now, the biggest thing is we're just trying to decide specifically what things we can fit in. We're trying to draw our map and say, here are the things, because this is how we do trips. Joyce and I, what do you want to see? What do I want to see? Okay? What is most important for you? What is most important for me? You know, what can't be missed. Now, fortunately, Joyce and I have some common interests. Like Liverpool, we know is about the Beatles. We're gonna spend maybe 3 days in Liverpool, max. Although in Germany we have a minimum of 4 nights in a city, because we really like to be there. But Liverpool is such a big city, and we're there just for the Beatles. I know there's a lot of other cool stuff. Oh, if you're in Liverpool, you got to see this, you got to see that, you got to come back. We're there for the Beatles. We're gonna hit the Cavern Club. We'll do one of the Beatle tours, but we also want to walk up and see the famous sites of the Beatles where we can actually walk and see them and not just look at them from a bus. And that's what we're doing in Liverpool, and then meet any of our friends from Liverpool. Anybody that's from the Liverpool area that, hey, we're going to be here these days, and say, hey, we can meet you here at this time. The other thing in Liverpool is if they do let you in or do guided tours, I want to get in and see Anfield, where Liverpool Reds play, in case you haven't figured out I'm a Liverpool fan by now. All right, see, this is why I'm glad to talk to you people. The Brit Rail Pass, Steven is a travel guy. Richard mentions the Oyster card. And so, you know, one of our ideas was we could stay in Kent and take the hour train into London, or we live 4 days in London, we go down to Kent. If I don't go to the Battle of Hastings site, I'm not going to be too depressed. I do want to go see it. But like I said, it's more like Crowshurst and not Hastings, where they say the battle actually took place. That's not where it took place. You know, they said, oh, this is the abbey that William built. No, it isn't. The ruins of the abbey that William built on the side of the battlefield are near, it's Crowshurst or something like that. You can book tours for the football grounds. Cool. So yeah, I want to get in and see. I don't know that, at least in the next 10 years, I don't know that I'll ever be able to go to Liverpool and see a game, which would be the ultimate dream for me, is to be in the stands at Anfield and watch Liverpool play. That would be a dream, but until Joyce retires, we can only travel in June, and the season's over by then, unless there's some sort of special game they decide to play. But yeah, I am now off work for 10 weeks. Yesterday, well, Friday was my last actual day of work. Yesterday's what we call key day. We have to go into work for a whole hour and sit around and do nothing, and then turn our keys in and leave. And most people finish cleaning their rooms, but my room was my room was never dirtied enough to be cleaned this year because I didn't get anything out. All I had to do was put the textbooks away once I got them back from my students. That's all I had to do. That was cleaning my room. I didn't put out all the displays and all the stuff I normally put out because there was no point in it. We were teaching from home at the start of the year, and then we taught in the classroom while the students were at home during February until we were all vaccinated, and then in March, we had our students in 4 days a week, but it was a mix. We'd have Group A. Group A was Monday, Thursday. Group B was Tuesday, Friday. And then Wednesday was online teacher tutoring, blah, blah, blah day. And then in April, we went back to 5 days a week. But this of course is one of the dangers we have, because so many of our friends that we talk to online and Facebook in the UK, we've got so many of them. Everybody's like, oh, you got to come here and see this, you got to come here and see that. And unfortunately, there's no way we would be able to fit that all in. So in some ways, we are looking like, is there a couple of places we could go where like a lot of the people within an hour, maybe within 2 hours, who wanted to actually meet us, we could all meet here, you know. York, there's a lot of you in the Warwick, York area, so we could do that. York's not far from Leeds. but I thought maybe the York Railway Museum, which is a very popular one, maybe we could all get together and have a full day hanging out at the York Railway Museum. Oh, that's cool, JP. See, I've just started, and again, all Joyce and I did so far is we started marking on a map things we want to see, things we were meh about, and things we're like, no. Like, for example, we both, I mentioned this already, we threw Stonehenge out. Neither one of us is geeked to see Stonehenge. Now, normally we'd be very interested in some things like that, but Stonehenge just seems so overdone. You know, it sounds horrible, but it's like neither one of us really are like, you really, if it was something we could pass by on the way to somewhere else and go, hey, look, there's Stonehenge. But we know we're going to come back and friends of ours are going to say, how could you go to England and not go to Stonehenge? We have castles and battlefields. And Joyce wants nature. So we're trying, like some of the hills of Wales and that. See, I'm trying to figure out, I want to get to Oswestry, which is right on the Welsh-English border. I know where it is. And it's probably most famous to anybody online because it's where Dan Brown, you know, sort of interesting. I'm not making fun of him. I just often do impersonations of him. Dan Brown lives in Oswestry, where he has his narrowboat and has his sort of interesting trains, sort of interesting YouTube, although he really, the last 2 years, has scaled back posting on YouTube. But Oswestry is the home and burial place of Wilfred Owen, my favorite poet, my all-time favorite English language poet. And it would be nice, because I thought he was, I don't think he's buried in Oswestry anymore. Well, ever. I think he's buried in France. But there's a memorial to him because that was his hometown. Hey, Roy, how are you? Well, there's a lot of historical coolness to Stonehenge. You know, it's like Paris. Most Parisians don't care or hate the Eiffel Tower. They are not into the Eiffel, you know, it's just there. In fact, it was hated for several decades after it was built. Parisians hated the Eiffel Tower. But when you go to Paris, it's one of the things you see, you know. How could you go to Paris and not see the Eiffel Tower? Well, we did see it. But Stonehenge, for the historical value of it, but there's bigger ones and much more impressive ones in other parts of the UK. And so we're just, we'll probably hit just one art museum, because Joyce, I hate to sound like the cultured one, but Joyce gets very bored very fast with art museums. She tolerates a few of them with me. She knows her art. She knows her, I guess, the basics. But she is me. I will go in, like if there's a Lucas Cranach exhibition, I'm there and staring at these paintings forever. And Joyce is like, "Could we go?" Or I'm going on my own. So, like we've gone to a few art things in Germany because A, it was a famous museum, or B, it was something I really wanted to see. And Joyce is very happy to walk through one time and kind of look at it, but she will get bored with that faster than I am. Faster than I will. So it's just, okay, which one would we go to? You know, of all the art museums in the UK, which one would we go in where we're going to see the most famous stuff? I mean, you know, I don't have a genre of art I'm into other than I'm not a fan of modern art. I don't like modernist interpretations. I think Impressionism is as far off as realism as I go with taste. For example, Salvador Dali, or with Surrealism, or the Cubism and expressionism of, crap, my brain's farting, of Picasso and so forth. I respect and impressed with their work, but it's not my taste. Okay? I very much prefer Renaissance to Impressionism. That's my field. The Renaissance, the birth of modern art, the Renaissance, into Impressionism. There's a lot of French Impressionism I like to love, and then there's some I'm not as big a fan of. What is Joyce's interest? I've only been married to her 34 years. I have no idea. Women are hard to figure out. Joyce has ADD, so her attention span does not... Joyce is into nature, okay? When we go places, Joyce's first question is, what hills, rivers, and mountains and forests are there? Where can I hike? Where can I go? So Joyce is not as impressed by human technological things, whether it's art or music. She's about nature. So really, that's how you'd put it. When we go traveling, it's a combination of what we can do that appeases my love of history. And Joyce likes history too. And Joyce really likes castles. Joyce loves going through castles. But when it comes to art and music, she appreciates the talent, but it's not really her interest. Her interest is naturalism. She is nature. When it comes to art, naturalism. So that's what her big thing is. Okay, this guy has almost done half an hour, another 5 minutes, and then I may attach some cars to him and let him pull some cars for a bit. So, yeah, wherever we go, there always has to be a nature content to it. So London, yes, I know you got big parks like Hyde Park and Victoria Park, something like that, blah, blah, blah. But Joyce wants nature. Because we've been to Munich several times and have never done the Deutsches Museum. We really want to do that someday. We haven't done that. And so, and to do any museum justice, you've got to... I've been to museums you can do in a day, but the great museums need a couple of days just to do that museum. The Louvre, you really can't do the Louvre in a day. Unless you run. Oh, look, there's the Last Supper. Oh, there's the Mona Lisa. You know, and you run through it. The Great Art Museum. The big, great in size, maybe. I mean, we actually here in Toledo have quite a nice little... we have a nice art museum. It's relatively small, but it's actually got a quite impressive collection. People from cities around the world that come to Toledo and we take them to the art museum, they're like, wow, this is actually a great collection of art for such a town. You wouldn't expect to have a good art museum, or wouldn't expect one. No, that's just it, Peter. And hi, Peter Shaw. Yeah, so we are planning on, for example, right now for sure, we're going to spend a couple of days up between the towns of Conway and Carnarvon so we could see those two castles. But we're also trying to decide where else. Something that would be in the south, like going to Swansea, but what's down in the Swansea area of historical value, because I want to ride that rail line through Dawlish. Plus, there's a couple of friends that would like us to meet down there. Also, the Isle of Wight, and of course, Tim is down in the Isle of Wight. So if we got down in that area, we'd like to say you know, drive by and say hello. Or walk by and say hello. Doo-doo-doo. Yeah, let's stick with this one that's smaller. I'm going to stop my trains here in a second. Oh, golly gee willikers, you would do that to me, wouldn't you? Had to stop my trains for a second, but figures they all passed in the one place where I needed clear. Oh well. Do it again. Bow, bow, bow. Now the question is, will these line up together? No, I'm not going to do all the shunting live. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to do the old hand of God shunting. What I really need to invest in is a re-railer. I want to see how well this guy pulls, so we're all going to find out together because I have not tested it yet. Okay, now. There's that. I'm going to start everybody else up and hold off on him. Now, what do I want to do? Oh, yeah, this. Oh, you went quiet on me, you darn consarn thing. I don't know if I have the lights on the right way or not, so we'll find out. Whoops. All right, let's start this guy up and see how well he handles trades. Okay, got him in the right direction. Yay. Well, except for JP Ricard, who's going to yell at me. See? It was predictable. JP was going to... Let's see how well it pushes. We're going to let it pull first. Oh, looks like he went up the ramp well. Hey, Tim JD, how are you? I'm just breaking in a new locomotive. Wrong way! Story of my life. I just keep going the wrong way. I'm an American. What can you say? Hey, I'm doing pretty good. 10 people here and 12 likes. You behave, JP, and maybe Jean Ricard, I will run him car first. Steuerwagen first. Maybe. Go, Pete, go. Don't be sorry. A, it was unannounced, and B, it's at an odd time. Don't feel bad about it at all, Tim. I'm sorry that I just do these things randomly so people don't know I'm doing them. It's too early for the Americans. It's an odd time in the UK because everybody's doing the tea and supper and or dinner or whatever one comes first. Yeah, Joyce is doing an online in-service on her computer upstairs. So I came to the basement and I got a new locomotive yesterday. So I decided to run it in today and decided what the heck, while I was going to run it in, maybe I'd go online and see if anybody showed up and chatted for a bit because it's raining outside. They're tearing up the road outside my house, so I really can't go do any outside things. I can't work in the yard, can't. We actually got our car pulled off on a side road so that if we have to go somewhere, we're parked over there. But it's just been we needed the rain a bit, so I'm not going to complain about the rain. It just, I'm kind of housebound and I was bored. So if I'm housebound and bored, why not go online and see what's happening? Nobody else was live streaming. I had a doctor's appointment this morning, just a checkup. The bad news is my doctor is leaving the practice. And I really like this doctor. I've had this doctor for 3 years. 3 years now. And he's probably the best doctor I've ever had. Great doctor. Saeed Husseini. And he's a great doctor. Really like him. And he's moving into a fellowship program to study sleep apnea and things like that. So he's moving on. Hi, Randall Ellison. How are you? Yeah, well, last week at this time it was in the 90s. We were very, very scorching hot here. 90s Fahrenheit, by the way. But yeah, we... But I finished up all the yard work. We had a lot of news, but I think I broke most of it to you last Friday. My son got engaged. We had Memorial Day this past weekend. We had a 3-day weekend. Well, you know, weather is part of travels. I've been to Berlin 13, 14 times. 13. I've been to Berlin 13 times. And I've seen it cold. I've seen it hot. I've seen it in everything in between. Cloudy and rainy and dismally. Hamburg. Hamburg's a city where in one day you can see, you know, what's the old adage, 4 seasons in one day? It's also an old Crowded House song. I could do Crowded House song. Four locos on one track, just for the... So, so yeah, when we go there next year, we're trying to find, basically, even with Joyce, the UK trip is about castles, seeing castles. And then just, we like to find a center point, a town where we can go off and do multiple things, but still come back to the same place at night. That's how we travel in Germany. Like, we'll stay in a town like Kempten, a little town like Kempten. One day we go to Munich, the next day we go to Ulm, the next day we go down to Lindau am Bodensee, the next day we go to Immingen and this roller coaster thing that's down there that's really cool, going down the side of a mountain. So we like to have a base of operations where we just store all our stuff, eat breakfast, and then we're gone all day and then come back to it. And then Kempten itself is a pretty little town. Oh, okay, Randall. Yes, I do remember it. And so you're back in Olden, Missouri today. I drove across northern Missouri once, and we stopped and ate at Chillicothe, in Chillicothe, Missouri. Route 36, Route 32. It's been almost 20 years. My kids were little. But yeah, the new locomotive is pulling the red cars. It's a Deutsche Bahn Class 143 locomotive. But hey, so again, to keep talking about the UK, because we're obviously opening ourselves to ideas, suggestions, and maybe things we haven't thought of. You know, and of course, everybody's got, you got to ride this heritage rail line. You've got to come and ride this heritage rail line. And again, we're going to have limited time and yet still try to get in what we want to get in on top of all the visits we want to do. So it's a year from now. A year from now, today, I suspect we'd be landing in the UK. Maybe a year from tomorrow. But it would be early June. And we're just looking at, you know, we've started looking at things we know we specifically want to do. I am a huge, huge military history fan. And I've been to places in Europe, although I've never made it to Waterloo or the Belgian, the Napoleonic War battlefields. I visited a couple of World War II site battlefields, but World War II isn't my big thing. Medieval warfare is my big thing. And the various English civil wars, the wars of Scottish independence in the 13th, 14th century against Edward Longshanks, have always fascinated me. Hi, Heath. So when we're over there, that's some of the things we want to catch and see. So, you know, the UK people maybe, there's nothing there. Okay. You know, well, there's something there for me. So to go to the actual Battle of Hastings battlefield, not the one the British Heritage Society or whatever it is, Royal Heritage Society, I forget what its name is, British Historical Society, whatever it is, where they claim the battle took place, totally is not it. There's nothing there that even remotely suggests that's where the battle was. There is a church that somebody decided must have been the abbey that William the Conqueror claimed he was going to build on the battlefield site. Well, therefore, that must be the abbey because it's in the town of Hastings, and therefore that's where the battlefield was. But you don't have the hills. You don't have the ramparting hills. You don't have the geography. It doesn't match up with the amount of time the historians say William marched here or did this, and there was this on this side. And yet if you go up to, I think the town's called Crowshurst, you have everything that specifically matches what the contemporary historians said happened. And of course, when you're dealing with history, you're dealing with different sides and different visions. But there are certain things both sides or all sides have in common that are contemporary. And the area around Crowshurst, whatever it is, that matches precisely with everything the historians said was there. And there's even the ruins of an old abbey there. An old Norman abbey there. So that would make more sense. And I've read a few books on it, and the two historical groups that really make their claim that it happened closer to where Crowshurst is now, their claims are so much better than anything the British Historical Society says, because the British Historical Society basically says, well, the battle happened here because we say it happened here. And there's this abbey here, except the abbey isn't right either. Hey, Ewan, how are ya? No, it's not Friday. Hi, Jackie. So, you know, as we do that, when we go up to Liverpool, we're going to be in Liverpool for probably 3 days. And there's a ton of things I'm sure to see in Liverpool. But what we're going to Liverpool for, and that's priority, is to see the Beatle stuff. The Beatle museums, the Beatle tours. Yes, is that stupid? For a lot of people. For me and Joyce, no, it's what we want. Oh, but there's this, you gotta go see Liverpool Port, you gotta go see this, you gotta go see that, you gotta come over here. No, it's Beatle stuff, meet a couple of friends, and the getting into Anfield, getting into the Cup, and seeing that. Oh, you got screwed, so it's Springfield, Missouri. Haven't been to, at least I don't think I've been to Springfield, Missouri. We drove, Joyce and I in 2002 drove across northern Missouri. We came across from, visited a friend in Springfield, Illinois. We were coming back from Wyoming with the kids, and we went to Iowa and then went down to Nebraska to Iowa, down the river to Springfield, Illinois. We went across Missouri to Springfield, Illinois, I should say. Trying to remember our trip. But, yeah, we drove across northern Missouri. Joyce got seasick. Northern Missouri was like this, and Joyce was green. We stopped off at Chillicothe, Missouri. I almost said Ohio because we have a Chillicothe, Ohio. And she went into a Subway while we got lunch and then threw up. She got too car sick. Yeah, hi Jerry. Yeah, it's only Wednesday. I'm just breaking in a new model locomotive, which is going through the station right now. When it comes around the 4K, I will show it again. I mean, I didn't want to wait till Friday to break it in. I wanted to run with it, mess with it, see if, make sure it was okay. You were hoping it was 5 o'clock. Nope, sorry to break anybody's heart. It's not a 3, 4, 5 o'clock or 8, 9 o'clock in the UK. It is on a Friday. It is just me on a Wednesday. Joyce is in a class. It's an in-service. There we go. Let's see, which camera? Yeah, there's the new locomotive. I'll bring it up on the 4K cam. Three, 2, 1. Now, don't worry, the lights in the back are red. They're clearly red, but on this camera and angle with the lighting, they show up white, but they are red. clearly red. But this new one, it's a BR-143. It is a German regional passenger traffic locomotive, 143. 143s have been around for many, many years in Germany, but they have, the Deutsche Bahn has remodeled them and are bringing a lot of them back into service. So this is a version of the new remodeled 143s. 143s, 146, and 147 are the main passenger locomotives for regional traffic by Deutsche Bahn. But that's new, guy. It doesn't do anything. There's no sound functions or anything on it. It's got just a basic decoder for lights. I'm going to mess with somebody here. Oh, that's why. I'm hitting the wrong button like an idiot. Dummy, dummy, dummy. Let's see how it handles control cab first. Well, that's not going to help because you guys aren't seeing anything. Let's go to that scene. There we go. All right, JP, if you're still here, Jean Ricard, the Steuerwagen is going first. We'll see if they uncouple because these Roco couplers do not like being pushed. It's a Pico locomotive and ESU cars with Roco couplers. Well, actually, it's ESU couplers. Okay. And already a problem. Yeah, that's why I don't like having them push. For some reason, they start going up that ramp, and it just knocked the car out and went up. Excuse me a second, guys. Well, just so you don't have... that is not going to be an easy reach. Oh, this is why I need to redesign this layout. This out of the way so I can get over there. Okay. Stupid. So, unfortunately, yeah, that's what I was worried about. It just does not like... Okay, bye, Randall. So yeah, right at that point, which is the same bad point I've always had. Yeah, I gotta take that point out. That's gonna be a project very soon. It's all right, Jean. Like I said, I give it a try, but it's particularly that lane. That there's a bad turnout over there. It's been bad, and when trains go one direction on it, they hit that turnout and they bounce. If it's pulling, it's fine. If it's pushing, they don't go. It's just, I've got to take that point out. I've needed to take that point out for months, but as long as I put the trains one way instead of the other, it's not a problem. But if it's pushing instead of pulling over that point, it acts up. Don't feel bad. Don't worry about it. It's my own fault because I don't take that point out. It's clearly a bad point. I've had other problems with it. A couple of my vehicles hit it, and there are certain trains I won't even run on the third lane because they hit that point and mess up. It's annoying as all get out, but I've been too lazy because it takes some work to get over there. So it's all good. Trains are running, no damage. It was actually funny. The one car bumped up, disconnected, and the train just reconnected. It's actually pretty cool. It was like just the one car, I'm off, and then the rest of the train just went together again. Go figure. See, and the problem is the metronome can go both directions, but it's on a track I don't like to reverse them with. What about the railjet? Railjet can always go. I'll experiment with it off camera someday. But yeah, see, my Facebook, you get memories on Facebook, and all of a sudden I'm just getting multiple Facebook memories because normally by today Joyce and I would be in Germany. If our trip this year hadn't been canceled, we would have been in Germany today. If our trip last year hadn't been canceled, we would have been in England today. And now everything's pushed back, but we really think we want to do the UK trip while I'm still working, because a year from today, not only will I be in some other country, I will no longer be a professional teacher. I will be unemployed. Well, I'll be retired. And we want to do the UK trip where we know we're still traveling on my teacher pay, because even though I retire I'll retire at the end of May next year, my full income goes through the fiscal year, which is September. I wonder if you are the one I need to change the tires on. And see, also, this was my ESU car that fell off the track. And these guys are not, they're gorgeous. This is my first and last ESU set of cars. They're gorgeous. But man, they are lightweight and fidgety. And I had to order, I haven't put them on yet, some more ESU four-rail tires. And this might be the one that needs the wheels replaced on it. That might have been why it derailed. It needs the wheels, because that's the thing. It's the non-Michelin vehicles that have problems on that turnout. The ones that still have their DC wheels on it, because you can run DC wheels on it, because as long as they're not powered. But yeah, I bought this new locomotive last week. It was a bank holiday in Germany, so it didn't get here until yesterday, because we had Monday off and they had Friday off. So it normally would have been here last week Friday, but be that as it may, we have on this particular car, probably. I think this is the one I still got to change. Most of them I already changed to Michelin wheel sets, but one of them I didn't, and I'm betting that's the one since it popped right there. But then again, no, this is the first class, second class car, so no, that's when I did change the wheels on, because it's the one first class, second class car. So that theory goes up a little. But anyhow, so yeah, this is a new locomotive, because I have two others that there's a Miraklin version of this 143 that comes out in December, but there's two other trains that I'm looking at that are also coming out in December, or November, December, that time period. And there's no way I could justify getting all three at that time. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Jean. In some cases, I haven't changed it over. For example, my Alex train. No, those are all changed to AC. Those are AC wheels. Which one? Which one are the DC wheels? I think yeah, some of the Alex cars are still DC wheel sets. A couple of them are AC wheel sets, a couple of them are DC wheel sets. But again, as long as they're not powered, they technically still work. But yes, for some reason there's a little bit of a difference between them. And yeah, I need to, that's why I keep ordering more and keep changing them out as I can. But yeah, this guy is AC wheels, and he still went off. I know this one is AC because this is the one that's first class in the middle, second class on the ends. And it's the only one I have like that, and that was one of the first ones I got. Yeah, I would be 86 at that time, JD, but I don't know that I would live that long. The men in my family have this horrible habit of dropping dead at 83. My grandfather was 83 when he died. His father was 83 when he died. No, his father was 93 when he died. My grandfather was 83, my dad was 83, and my uncle was 83 when they died. So anything past 83 is a gift. Apparently it doesn't matter what you do, but in my family, the men drop dead. We're clones. It's sickening we're clones, but the last couple of generations, everybody dies at 83. Unless something intervenes, such as war or a drunk in a car. No, my great-grandfather lived to 93. He got an extra decade out. Yeah, Jean Ricard, it's the profile. Yeah, it is. It's the way the phalange is set up. And again, I don't know why, but I mean, technically the gauge is supposed to be the same. It's HO track. And then, of course, you have code 75 and code 100 tracks in a lot of cases. And Miraklin C track, you need the wider profile. Hey, Rick Bailey, how are you? But also, these ESU cars are so lightweight that when the locomotive pushes them, and I have that trouble spot, again, the trouble spot was an AC wheeled car. It just, some of them, they hit that spot on that turnout and they pop. And so it's not even so much the wheel set, it is that turnout, and it's how these cars are coupled. The Miraklin Telex couplers don't have a problem. My Roco, which is computer, I could run the Roco control car first and not have any problems. But my my Regiobahn, my double-decker, the Dostok, the double-decker, one of the cars has a bad bogie on it. It's bent from an accident. The bogie is bent, so it does not do well being pushed. If I take that particular car out and just run the 3 cars with the locomotive, it'll push it just fine. But it works fine with the locomotive going forward. It doesn't work being pushed, because when you push, that puts more pressure on the car into it, and it buckles up that coupler. Yeah, it's the angle. And again, the depth of the flange. There's a lot of different things that catch into it. But again, on a layout, it's always a combination of the wheel set, the person operating, and a bad spot on the track. So in that situation where that derailed, it was a bad spot and I was pushing, and I am not impressed. And if you go back when I first got these cars, I am not impressed with these Telex couplers by ESU. These are very flimsy. They're easily uncoupled. But when I went and put Märklin in, it made it too tight, and they were bumping as they went around corners, because these are true 187 scale cars. So they didn't like a couple of the Radius 3 curves. Radius 3, they didn't like them with the Märklin couplers, because the Märklin couplers are slightly shorter. So, coupler, tire, bad spot on track can be a bad combination depending on what you're doing. Like I said, when it was pulling, it wasn't an issue going over it. Pushing, one of the wheels caught and it popped right out. So the angle of the flange, going that way, being pushed with the crappy coupler, yeah. Like I said, it was just weird because that one car fell out and the others reconnected. But see, I'm going to run the Railjet control car first here. And you can see it doesn't have a problem. I'm going to slow it down a bit. But the funny thing is, Jean Ricard, my cameras are also set up for the trades going this direction. In other words, going the pulling way. If you see the ramp here. What kind of roadies do I have? I'm not sure. I use the Märklin C-Track, but I think you know that. So I don't know if I'm understanding your question. What kind of roadies do I have? All right, bye, Chris. Oh, radius. Um, let's see. What's the best camera to show this? All right, I'm going to stop everything just for a second and show this. Where are we at? Let's do 11 lane view. 11 lane view. Okay, this is probably the best to show. Genre card. It is. There. Radius 5, R5, which is the largest Miraculin radius, although they are starting to make 6, I understand. Radius 5. Radius 5. So the two outers are both radius 5, R5. And then R4. R3. R3. So 5, 5, 4, 3, 3. And then the radius on the narrowest lane, that the little diesel guy here, that's R2. And then all these curves in here are 3s, except for this one, which is a 2. So the only place I have a radius 1 curve, I do not have any radius 1 curves on here except on the turnouts leading into the parking areas, because only the radius 1 curves fit the matrix there. So let's turn that back on. But so it's R5, 5, 4, and then 3, 3, 3, and then 2 on the tightest one. And then the only place I have a radius 1 curve is just one piece on all the turnouts going into the parking areas. I wanted as large a radius as I could get, so R5 is the largest. So from on the 5 main lines, the 5 lines that I run my large trains, it's 5, 5, 4, and then the 2 that just circle the inside table are 3s. Only because I had a ton of 3s left and no more 4s. When I rearrange some of the stuff on here, I may go back to radius 4s on everything. Radius 5s, and then 4 on all the inside. The outer loops are all radius 5, the inner loops are radius 4. I really try to avoid radius 1. Now, I noticed the American guys, when they talk about radius, they talk about, the inches. How many inches? Like 19-inch radius or 20-inch radius or however it works, 18-inch radius. I don't know how that works in... I know the Miraculin geometry. Let me see if I can pull this up real fast. Let's see. Yeah, well, it's just to get it to expand as wide as you can get it. Again, this table's already too wide. It makes it hard to reach. If there's a problem in this back area that you saw where the one car derailed, it's almost impossible for me to reach it without crawling over the table. I'm eventually going to put a strong leg here so I can use my workbench as a step up and step over into that area when there's a problem. But let's see if I can pull this up here real quick. Add. No. Cancel. Add. Image. I'll put this up here real fast when I get to it. This is one of the geography pages for American Sea Track. So if you're an American and have never seen this, American gives you, and so the radius is 64.6 centimeters from the middle of the curve to a C5. So that's 64.36 centimeters, or it gives you 643. So divide that by roughly 2.54. It's, 20 some inches is the widest radius, and the narrowest radius is roughly 12 inches. Just under 12 inches. So anyhow, the American radius 1, if you do just a radius loop, it's roughly 2 feet. So you almost can fit it on a 2-foot wide board. And that's why it's popular, because a lot of people don't have a lot of space, and R1 gives you, it's a 12-inch radius or a 24-inch diameter from the center of the track to the center of the track. So hi, Joseph. How are you? Good to see you too. So the better part of 50 years. Yeah, and I'm 5 years, so I'm still a noob. I'm still a rookie at this. I'm Anfänger, as we say in German. A beginner. Oh, that's right, yeah. It's a 224. It's a radius 2, 24-degree turn to balance out your turnout. This is the wrong way, but to straighten your turnout back out. You need a 224 here. You do a 172 and a 224, and then they line up again and keep everything straight. So yeah, radius 1 is the curve. I kept thinking it was the radius 1 to even out the turnout, but right, it's a 224. Hi, Andrew. I'm doing pretty good. Just running in a new train. I've run it in, and now I'm letting it pull some cars here. It's a Pico. Whoops. That's not where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to go. It is a Pico Expert class. And Expert is not their highest. It's a Class 143 Deutsche Bahn. Some of the technical stuff is in your DNA. Yeah, and I love when people can clarify things for me, because my whole channel was all about a beginner in Miracle trying to help other beginners. And then if a pro comes in and says, hey, wait, that's how you do this. And just, you know, as I go through and learn things, share those with others, because Miracle itself does not do a great job of showing how to. And then the German pages, the German YouTube channels, if you're a beginner, they don't seem to really want to bother with you. There's a few good pages that I've followed, but in a lot of cases, they're like, go away. We don't want to try to teach you. You know, Google it and YouTube it, and it's like, that's why I'm here. You try to learn that way. So everything I've done has been crash and burn learning. And so, like, I will, when you have a turnout, to bend it back so that they'll both run parallel on a turnout. This is a 224. I keep thinking it's a 130, but you're right. Only on the curved is it a 130. It's a 224 here and here. Whoops, wrong button. Sorry about that, wrong button. I'm just changing direction on a couple of things. Right, so yeah, well, because I run the Railjet, the Austrian Railjet, and I run the ICE 3. According to Miracle, they can run Radius 2, and they do. They can even run, well, the ICE 3 can run Radius 1, but it doesn't look right. So when I was designing this table, I wanted my long distance trains, the high speed trains, the Railjet and the ICE 3, which have the longer cars, I wanted them to have the widest turn possible. So I did radius 5s on those two outer loops, because they're always going to be, my high speed ICE 3 and Railjet will always be on those two outer loops. And I believe the Loco Railjet is a true scale 187. I'm pretty sure the Loco Railjet is a 187 scale cars, that they were true scale. I could be wrong. The ICE 3 is 1 to 93.5. It's a 193.5 scale, so that it can operate on Radius 1. But the Railjets do not like Radius 1. The Railjets do not like Radius 1 at all. So, when I was designing the layout, I wanted the two outer loops, the longest runs, I wanted those Radius 5. I'd want them Radius 6 if they made Radius 6. If Miracle ever releases a Radius 6 in C-Track, I would take out all my Radius 5s and redo all of this to Radius 6. Because a gentleman from Germany that works with Deutsche Bahn, but also runs a model train shop. He said, to be honest, the smallest radius in the German rail system would be equivalent of an R9 in a toy room layout. That R9 is the tightest curve they run. And that the equivalent of like R12 would be the tightest radius the high-speed trains run. And so, yeah, it's now, of course, the other thing is the people that in HO scale. You know, if I were to do this table in N scale, it would be amazing. You know, if I did this in N scale, where you would have the smaller train and you'd have this nice long 23-foot run that really you can put out long trains and they look natural. I have the one long run, which is 23 feet. I could do another 23-foot long run here if I just did a big oval, but getting in and out of the oval would be the issue. That has been an idea over the years. But I get more footage, I get more running time by putting the bends in and having it loop around here. You know, I gain that much more footage by, you know, it's geometry again, the hypotenuse basically, but to curve it and come down here around me, that adds footage to the run. Basically, it's about 6 foot across the middle here. But by having it run down here, it's 6 foot here, 6 foot here, and 6 foot back up there. I gain 12 feet of running space by curving it in here. So it gives me just that much more running. Obviously, if I built a helix and all these things, I would have even more running time. And we originally had a helix designed here, but we just couldn't figure out the best way to do it. Plus, we needed the space. Right, Jean Ricard, that's what I'm saying. The scale of the Miraklin cars is reduced. Miraklin cars are all 193. Some of their locomotives are true scale, but their passenger cars are 1 to 93.5. Some of their cars are 1 to 95. In fact, I think the ICE4 is 1 to 95, not even 93.5, but 1 to 95. The Roco Railjet is true scale. The cars are 1 to 187. The cars are 1 to 187. Those ESU passenger cars are 1 to 187. They're true scale. Miraklin does theirs. Their modern long cars do them at 1 to 193. And that was a big debate I got into a while ago is could Miraklin do some of the ICE3s and make them true scale? You know, other companies do that. The Pico ICE4 is true scale. It's 1 to 187. So it will not run on Miraklin Radius 1. And it struggles, from what I understand, on Radius 2. But the Pico ICE4 that came out last year, a year ago, is true scale. It's 1 to 187. The cars are 1 to 187, which was one of the temptations to get it. But Miraklin's, I believe, they did theirs at 1 to 195. Now at this size, how big a difference is it? Some purists, it's a big deal. Others, it's not. To me, it's not a big deal, but it would be cool. I like knowing that a train is at the true scale. But I also understand Miraklin has all those people with those narrow radius, those R1 layouts, and they want to be able to run those trains. So it's a no-win situation. Yeah, that's true, Jean. If I did multiple trains on the same track, I wouldn't necessarily need all the parallels. Now, the 3 lanes I do run are true because 3 lanes run into the Dumb and Horse train station, and then about 2 miles outside of Dumb and Horse, two of the lanes condense into 1 lane, so you wind up with 2 going into Bremen, and then once they get into Bremen, they spread out again into all the different parking areas of Bremen. So two lines run in the long run between Bremen and Delmenhorst, and then from Bremen you've got 2 lines run down to Hanover or up to Hamburg. Of course, you've got 15 platforms in Bremen. But my thing is, I just like having the multi-track, which is unrealistic, where I don't have to worry about setting up the stopping systems, because I didn't feel like the way I wanted to set this up was conducive to doing blocking. Again, if I weren't going to build, because it's not just a train layout, okay? It's not just running trains. I am building the city of Delmenhorst here, or at least the main downtown section of Delmenhorst here. And that immediately created issues if I wanted to do all the staggered lines and have a helix and going up and down, because I'm creating Delmenhorst, the town, and then just running other trains around. So I wanted 3 lanes coming in, but I still, because my ADD and ADHD, I want lots of trains running. So on the other side, I just have lots of circles and letting the trains run. So yeah, if I built in block detection and set that up, then yeah, I could have multiple trains running and being controlled by a computer system. Well, when I started this, I didn't want to do that. I mean, I still don't want to do it, but I see reasons why I should. I've had a friend from a club nagging me forever, do block detection. Now, part of it is he wants me to do block detection, so I'll turn around and build block detection on his layout, because he wants block detection, but he wants somebody to do it for him. Or at least show him how to do it. But I just never, I know it's going to sound weird, I just never felt my layout was going to be that big and have that complicated a running system that I needed block detection. I still want to hand control things. I want to dial it here and mess with it here. You guys see me, I'm constantly controlling the switch. And I don't really need my trains switching lanes and doing that. I have switches to help the power, not so much to change lanes, but also the switches are there to help. Well, when I'm changing trains, when I'm parking trains and taking other trains off, because I don't have a big enough area to build a full fiddle yard where all my trains could fit. That's what I'd love to do. So yeah, it's just, there's a lot to be said for block detection, but when I started this, I didn't want to do it. And it just, in the end, it's, you gotta do what makes you happy. And this is my meditation, man. I come down here and just watch my trains run, and I don't have to worry about it. And yes, if you get a program like Rail Control or something like that, and you have block detection, you don't have to worry. And there's a guy, Nick, Rule 1 Railways, I think his website's called, his YouTube channel. Rule 1 Railways. His entire layout is so computer control, and he's got so many different things that he just goes to the computer, plan 1. And then these trains will all run at different times, stop, park, go in. And he could sit back and just let it all happen, which is awesome. But I'm lazy. I didn't want to put all that additional work in. And they do. And I remember telling Joyce one time I'd probably never have more than I told her I'll probably never have more than 10 trains. Then I had 12. And then suddenly I had 14. And now I'm way over 20 with 3 more to come this year. I was shocked when I counted my trains. And, Joyce asked, well, how many trains do you have now? I'm like, oh, I got about 15 or 16 now. No, I got 24. Oops. With 3 more to come. The ICE4, and then there's, well, maybe 4 because I'm looking at getting a Deutsche Bahn. I'm getting a Class 120 locomotive because I'm going to build an EC, Eurocity. So yeah, I have a lot more trains than I thought I did. Where did I put that paper? Here it is. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yep. I have 22 trains or locomotives and 2 control cab cars that have their own decoders and everything. But yeah, and Joyce does say, you don't have any more place to put them. You're out of storage. But yeah, this is, I will be down here a lot. I mean, you can see I'm wearing my Frankfurt t-shirt. The most depressing thing in the world right now for me, well, actually, that I will talk about here, the most depressing thing in the world here, other than all my friends dying of cancer, is getting all my Facebook messages with memories. This is what you were doing in Germany 2 years ago. This is what you were doing in Germany 4 years ago. This is what you were doing in Germany 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And knowing I'm not going to Germany. It is absolutely frustrating to know I'm not going to Germany this year. Germany is my reset button. I go to Germany for 2-3 weeks, and then I just come back and I'm ready to face the next year of life again. And not going to Germany is kind of driving me crazy. And now so we've started planning the trip to the UK next year because that's going to be the trip next year. But it's more stressful because I don't know how the UK travel system works. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find a place to stay and transportation to where we want to go. And I'm sure lots of people volunteer, hey, we'll pick you up and we'll do this. But I don't want to use people like that, and I appreciate the offers and we'll take advantage of it as we can. Why am I retiring? Why does anybody retire? I've been teaching for this was year 34, 35. I've been teaching a long time and I'm tired. And I still enjoy teaching, but there's parts of the job I'm sick of. And after 35 years, I'm ready to open another page in my life. There are things I want to get back to that I've stopped doing for years now because other things have gotten in the way. But yeah, it's why does anybody retire? I'm lucky the fact that I didn't burn out. Because the worst thing in the world is seeing colleagues, teachers that they've done the job 20, 25 years, and you can just see they've lost the love of the job. They're just, and they're just counting the days like, oh my God, I got 5 more years till I retire. Can I hang on? And I know teachers that walked away, they just said, I've done this 25 years, and they're just sick of it, and they say, I quit, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. But when it's the one job you're trained for, there's nothing else of skilled, high-paid labor I can walk out and do now. There's nothing. You know, it's not like I've been an electrician. I can quit for a few years and then go back to it. Or a plumber, or a doctor. I'm a teacher, and the only thing I can do professionally and make good income is teach. And any other job waiting for me on the outside would either still be an education, which I don't want to do, or would be low paying jobs. Yeah, it did give me the opportunity to go to Germany. The income, it's not just being a teacher, because that ended. Being a German teacher gave me the opportunity to start going to Germany, but that exchange program ended 5 years ago. The last few trips have just been Joyce and me, because of the we already have the money set aside, and so we can afford to go. We're already setting the money aside to buy the air tickets and all that. When I retire, I do take a drop in pay, and it's just debatable whether it will be such a dramatic drop in pay that we can only afford to travel every other year instead of every year, which we've done, well, until COVID hit, where we were going to Germany every year from 2003 to, well, we took 2018 off, but we did from 2003 to 2019, we went every year, except for 2018. So we'll still go. It just may not be as often, because it'll just take me that much longer to save up the money. But yeah, retiring from teaching. I mean, when I started teaching, our pension began at 30 years. In other words, I would have retired with a full pension 5 years ago, and they took that away. They changed the law and said, oh, by the way, you have to teach 5 more years. So, okay, I'll teach 5 more years. But I'm lucky, if there's such a thing as being lucky, I'm lucky that I get to, I still love teaching. I still love working with my students. What drives you out of teaching are all the regulations. Fighting the parents that won't encourage their kids to work at school. Fighting the principals, the administrators. Fighting the state politicians who have a bunch of people who have never taught in a public school telling us how to do our jobs, and just doubling, tripling, quadrupling the paperwork we have to do. You know, everybody seems to think I start teaching at 8 and I stop teaching at 3, and I'm sitting on my butt smoking cigarettes and drinking beer the rest of the day. I go in at 6 o'clock and have 2 hours of work I have to get done before I teach. And then I come home and I'm grading papers and preparing lessons and writing tests and change. You know, it's a 16-hour job. And then I go to bed and start the whole process up the next day. And I was aware of that going into the job, so I don't complain about that. But what I do complain about is the people who think I don't do anything once the students are gone, that think it's an easy job. Well, you teachers need to do more work. You need to do more work. Have you tried to do my job? Because everybody, it's like a mailman or anybody else. You can criticize their job until you do it. You know, go on the other side. Because, you know, anytime I talk about being a teacher, I'll get a bunch of people talking about, oh, I hated my teachers. I hated my teachers. My teachers sucked. I hated school. And, you know, come to the other side. Be on this side. Because I was a student. I was on that side. And now I've spent 35 years on this side. And you get tired of the crap. You get tired of all the outside stuff, what we call the ancillary stuff. And so I'm ready to retire, because the joy of teaching, even to teach one more year, if I decide I'm going to stay one more year after next year, I would have to take a whole bunch of more classes. I'd have to spend several hundreds to thousands of dollars to recertify, to get my license renewed again. And then there's all this extra state work that I have to do that next year I don't have to do because I'm retiring. So I don't have to do all this stuff. But if I'm going to teach one more year, I got to do this whole cycle of more courses in college, more in-services I have to attend, more state regulations, plus all the fees and things I have to do to renew my permission to teach. And I'm just not ready to do that again. I just do not want to do that again. So I'm happy to be stepping away. I love teaching, but I'm also happy to see next year at this time never having to go back in the building, never have to put up with a principal, an administrator, a politician, a regulation. And the job has changed drastically in the 35 years I've taught. It's a lot harder to do now, and the extra work the politicians throw on us is just ridiculous. And it's all BS. They make us do it all and they burn it. They don't read it. They don't follow it up. It's just so they can go to the people that vote for them and say, we've taken these lousy teachers and made them do this to prove that, okay, here's the 200 hours of work I had to do on top of my hundreds of hours, thousands of hours teaching. Here's all this extra paperwork you asked me to do. Here it is. And they're like, thank you. Burn. I like most of my teachers. School for me was an escape. It got me away from a bad family. It got me out of a bad neighborhood. Going to the school and staying at the school. Teachers that recognized I needed help and needed a safe place. I love teachers, and it's one of the reasons I became a teacher. It was teachers that involved themselves with me and tried to help me even when I didn't think I needed help, but found ways to keep me involved and to keep me on task. And they could see some of the crap I was taking from the neighborhood kids and stuff like that, and they became surrogate parents to me. And in a way, I became a teacher to pay back, or as we call it, paying forward. I had teachers help me out, and I wanted to be that same teacher that helped the next kid out. So my students are probably less engaged. Less. You gotta understand, I teach German now. Now, I was an English teacher too, but I taught German. I've been primarily German for close to 20 years now. Primarily German, but I've still taught English from time to time as needed. But I teach in what was once a middle class, good district, but over the years, it's changed, and we have a much higher poverty level of students who are less motivated to do schoolwork. And again, it can become political, and people have different views than I do, and I don't want to fight about it, but our kids are tougher kids, and so they're not necessarily motivated to learn a foreign language. They're not motivated to do this work. Teach me the stuff teach me how to balance my checkbook, teach me how to do this, and I don't care about that German stuff or whatever. And so it's tougher. And even in English class, why does writing a 5-page essay mean anything if I'm going to work in a factory and blah blah blah? And it's like, guys, we want you to maybe you need geometry whether you're an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter. You need geometry. You need English skills when you want to fill out a resume or do this or do that. And there's nothing wrong with improving yourself, but it's an American disease in a lot of ways. But yes, it's harder to reach my students. It's harder to teach my students. And I usually get a little street cred because I was a street kid myself. I wasn't a thug, but I grew up among thugs, and I know the thug life, let's put it that way. I know the gang mentalities. I know the gang world. And so I would have street cred with my students that I knew it. They respected me because I know what I'm talking about. When I talk about growing up poor, or when I talk about growing up in tough neighborhoods, they respect that. So I can get more than some teachers that come out of a lily white, perfect family and, lived in the suburbs their whole life and don't understand what it means to grow up in these kind of environments. Right, Jean, I know. So, yeah, and sometimes it's really hard to explain, but I teach in a, you know, let's just leave it at my students. It's harder to teach my students now than it was 25, 30 years ago. It's harder. Because it would take hours to explain the American school system because there isn't an American school system. Every city has its own system. Every state has its own system. But I just see so many of the UK people really hated school and the UK school system. Of course, I grew up with Pink Floyd The Wall. When we grew up and went to school, there were certain teachers who would hurt the children any way they could by pouring their derision upon everything we did, you know. And I was like, yeah, most of my teachers were cool. Most of my teachers were good teachers. I had some bad ones, but so yeah, trying to explain the American school system to, you know, even to Germans, because I understand their school system, but most of them don't understand ours. You know, well, what kind of high school would Bowser be? And I'm sure in the Denmark and Netherlands, it's similar, because I know in Italy and France it's kind of similar. Like in Germany, there's Gymnasium, Hauptschule, and Realschule, the three different types of high school. And we don't really do that in America, although private schools might be equated with gymnasium. My school, in terms of the type of students we teach, is closer to a Realschule, the lowest level of high school, except we also have high academic classes that would be the equivalent of gymnasium. But yeah, it's really a you know, in Germany, the closest thing is what we call a Gesamtschule, because that's what an American high school is, a public school. And in America, a public school is different than a public school in England. What they call public school in England, or in the United Kingdom, we call private school. It's one you pay tuition and go to, and usually only rich kids go to it. And public school are called state schools. But in America, it's a public school. We're a big city. We're in the north. We're a big city. We're not a big city. We're 300,000, somewhere in there. All right. Well, I've been on for a while. Joyce is done with her class, so I probably should go see what little things we want to go do. I know she has some running she wants us to do. Now let's get you up in the station. And the railjet can park on the corner there. And the ME4 can park right there. I want you over here, dude. Because I want to mess with you a bit off camera later today. And then I've got the mouse in it. I still use the finger. And doobie-doobie-doo. Where are we at? Here. Let's do that one. Thank you. That's what we wanted. Off. Off. Bring everybody to a stop here, because I really should be getting off here. And pop this back up and pop that back up. There we go. All good. All right, guys. Well, I am going to go ahead and log off. Thank the few of you that came out. Nice talking to you, especially you, Jean Ricard. I will be back on Friday at my usual time, the Friday live stream. I have actually started preliminary rough sketches of a new Matt Clark series, not to come for several weeks or months yet, but the other day I just sat down and started creating characters and decided they sounded funny um, and would fit in with a Matt Clark bit. I'm just trying to decide on a plot, and was talking to Joyce about it, and she was making suggestions. But so there will be another Matt Clark series later rather than sooner, but we'll see. But anyhow, I'm going to tell everybody thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me for a bit. I've been on for 2 hours and 41 minutes as I yak here. And it's always great to whomever comes in. So all of you that are still here, thanks for hanging out. As always, Alvida Zane and happy train.